Welcome to our deep dive all about Earth's water. You guys gave us some great sources from Wikipedia, and it's more fascinating than I thought, to be honest. Oceans, glaciers, groundwater, rivers. We're even talking about water deep inside the Earth. So get ready for some surprising facts about how this essential resource is actually distributed. It's anything basically ordinary.
Yeah, it's true. When we think of water, right, we kind of picture that classic image of Earth from space, the blue planet.
Right.
But the reality of where all that water is and how it actually exists is way more complex. And I'd say even more interesting, don't you think?
Definitely more interesting.
Oh,
Okay, let's
great.
jump right in.
Oh.
One thing that really stood out to me was how much of Earth's water is salt water. Over 97%. That leaves like less than 3% is fresh water. And on top of that, most of that is locked up in ice and snow.
Yeah, it really kind of messes with your perception, huh? I mean, we see all that blue from space and we just assume that there's tons of fresh water, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But it's a pretty powerful reminder of how precious and limited this resource really is.
I mean, every drop we use, whether it's from, a simple glass of water to the huge amounts that we need for agriculture, impacts how much there is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely makes you think twice about taking fresh water for granted. And then on top of that, this limited fresh water that we do have isn't even spread out evenly across the globe.
Right.
Some areas have way more than they need, while others are dealing with like serious scarcity. And that can have some pretty major effects on ecosystems and people too.
Yeah. Imagine imagine squeezing a giant water balloon, like one that represents all the fresh water on Earth.
Okay.
And when you squeeze it, the water's going to bulge out in certain spots and shrink in others, right? That's kind of what's happening with how our fresh water is distributed.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You've got places like the Cape York Peninsula in Australia. Hardly anybody lives there, but it holds a quarter of the entire continent's fresh water.
Wait, a quarter of the continent's fresh water is in an area that's barely populated?
Yeah.
That just seems like so backward.
Yeah.
What does that mean for how Australia manages its water?
Well, it definitely creates some unique challenges for them.
Yeah.
And some opportunities, too. It means they've had to get creative with how they move that water to where it's actually needed. Like, they've become leaders in water conservation and efficiency, things like strict water restrictions during droughts and promoting new technologies like rainwater harvesting.
So they're really making the most of what they've got. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about lakes.
Okay.
They hold a pretty substantial chunk of the world's freshwater, right?
They do.
The North American Great Lakes alone contain a crazy 21%.
Yeah.
It's like a fifth of all the liquid freshwater on the planet's surface.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it,
Yeah.
just those 5 lakes. But they're a lifeline, a vital resource from millions of people and just countless ecosystems, And they're a great example of how water resources are interconnected, right? Managing them effectively means working together, not just between, different states and provinces, but across international borders. We're talking the U.S. and Canada here.
Yeah, it really shows how, the way we manage water needs to be much more big picture, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about how much water there is, but, its quality too, and the needs of everyone who depends on it. And speaking of kind of hidden resources, what about groundwater? I mean, that plays a key role, especially in drier regions, right? But getting an accurate measurement of how fast it recharges or replenishes itself, that's got to be tricky.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot like trying to figure out how much water is going into a bathtub that's got, a leaky drain while someone's in there taking a shower at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Complicated. I mean, we could be tapping into really ancient groundwater, like fossil groundwater that took thousands of years to build up without even realizing it.
So it's not just about how much groundwater we're using, but also where it's coming from and how
Yes.
long it takes to replenish, right?
Exactly. It's a very delicate balance.
Yeah. Now, rivers. I was just so surprised to find out how dynamic they are. A huge portion of their flow is actually hidden beneath the surface.
Yeah, that's the hyporheic zone. It's a really fascinating and often overlooked part of river ecosystems. It's like, picture a secret world beneath the riverbed, teeming with life.
Wow.
And it plays a crucial role in, filtering out pollutants and providing habitat for all sorts of organisms, essential for healthy rivers and clean water for us.
So there's a whole underground network of water moving beneath our rivers, impacting water quality and supporting all this biodiversity.
Yeah.
It's like a hidden world we don't even think about.
And, that kind of brings us to probably the most mind-blowing discovery in recent years, the possibility of massive amounts of water stored deep within the Earth's mantle, hundreds of kilometers below us.
Okay, now this is where it gets really, really interesting. We're talking about water, like bound up in minerals under crazy pressure and heat.
Yep. Scientists have discovered this mineral called ringwoodite. Think of it like a sponge, but on a microscopic level that can hold on to water molecules even under the incredible pressure and heat found way down there in the Earth's mantle. That's ringwoodite, and it's more common than we once thought.
So even though it's incredibly hot that far down, this mineral is like a reservoir, trapping water molecules.
Precisely. And we're not talking about just little pockets of water here. Studies suggest that the ringwoodite in the transition zone, a layer deep within the Earth, could hold a significant amount of water. Like some scientists even believe that all the water stored in the Earth's interior could be equal to or even exceed the amount in all our surface oceans combined.
So we could have been walking around on a planet with a hidden ocean beneath our feet this whole time.
It's a real possibility, and it totally changes the way we think about water on Earth. It's not just a surface resource anymore. It's part of how our planet actually works, which has huge implications for how we understand and manage the water we do have up here.
This is incredible. We've only just scratched the surface, haven't we?
Right.
But before we go any deeper, I want to know more about how this discovery impacts our understanding of the global water cycle.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
So welcome back to our deep dive into Earth's water. Like we promised, we're going to explore some of the latest scientific discoveries that are, reshaping how we understand this essential resource.
Yeah, I'm ready for more. We left off talking about those huge amounts of water that might be stored deep within the Earth's mantle, like a whole hidden ocean beneath our feet. So what does that discovery actually mean for our understanding of the global water cycle?
Well, for one thing, it suggests that the water we see on the surface in rivers, lakes, oceans, it isn't a static system. It's part of a much bigger exchange with the Earth's interior.
Huh.
And this whole Earth water cycle, as it's sometimes called, it's a pretty revolutionary idea.
Whole Earth water cycle. Okay, that's fascinating. I'm trying to picture it. Like, how does water actually move between the surface and the deep Earth?
Well, it's a complex process, and scientists are still working out all the details. But one theory is that water gets carried down into the mantle through subduction zones. These are places where tectonic plates collide. And over, millions of years, this water can be transported deep, deep down.
So it's like a giant conveyor belt moving water from the surface down into the planet.
Yeah.
But what happens to that water once it's down there? Does it just stay trapped forever?
Not necessarily, no. Geological processes like volcanic eruptions, for example, can bring some of this deep water back up to the surface.
Oh, okay.
So it's this continuous cycle of exchange, just on a time scale we can barely even fathom.
Yeah, wow. It's amazing to think that a single water molecule could, fall as rain, flow in a river, get sucked down into the earth, and then millions of years later be spewed back out through a volcano.
It really puts things into perspective, right?
Yeah, it does. And it makes you realize just how interconnected everything on Earth really is.
Yeah.
But this deep water, it's not just sitting down there doing nothing, is it? I mean, it's got to be affecting the Earth in some way.
Oh, absolutely. This deep water plays an active role in shaping our planet.
Okay, so how does it affect the Earth's geology and all those processes?
Well, for one thing, water in the mantle can actually weaken rocks, making them more prone to melting and deforming. And that can influence plate tectonics, the movement of those massive crustal plates that make up the Earth's surface.
So this water is like a lubricant, helping those plates move around.
That's one way to think about it, yeah. And of course, all that movement is what drives earthquakes and volcanic activity. So, in a way, you could say that this deep water is indirectly shaping the very landscape we live on.
Wow. It's like a chain reaction with water playing a key role in this whole complex interplay of geological forces. And this research into deep Earth water, it's not just changing how we see our own planet, is it? It's impacting how we search for life out there in the universe too, right?
Exactly. I mean, if water can exist deep within the Earth, under conditions we thought were totally impossible for life, it really opens up the possibilities for what might be happening on other planets and moons out there.
So instead of just looking for liquid water on the surface, we should also be considering places like Europa, a moon of Jupiter, or Enceladus, which orbits Saturn. They might have subsurface oceans.
Precisely. The discovery of this deep water on Earth has broadened our horizons in the search for extraterrestrial life. It's a reminder that water, the most essential ingredient for life as we know it, it might be much more common in the universe than we ever thought.
This is so exciting. But let's bring it back down to Earth for a minute. We've been talking about all these amazing discoveries, but what do they mean for our everyday lives? How does this new understanding of water actually impact us on a practical level?
That's a really important question. And while the study of deep earth water might seem abstract, it actually has the potential to inform how we understand and manage water resources on the surface. For
Yeah.
example, understanding how deep earth water interacts with surface water, well, that could help us better predict and maybe even mitigate the effects of things like droughts and floods.
So this knowledge can help us make smarter decisions about how we use and conserve water, maybe even lead to like totally new ways of accessing water resources.
Potentially, yes. If we can figure out how water moves between the surface and these deep reserves, we might be able to develop ways to tap into them sustainably.
Wow, that would be incredible. Like opening up a whole new frontier of water resources. But like you said earlier, we've got to be careful, right? We don't want to mess with these systems and
Yep.
end up causing more harm than good.
Exactly. Sustainability has to be our top priority as we explore these new possibilities. What these discoveries about deep earth water really show us is that our planet is this incredibly complex, interconnected system, and our actions can have, ripple effects.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. If we pollute a river, it's not just that river that suffers. The consequences can be felt downstream, impacting ecosystems and communities far, far away.
So it's about taking responsibility,
Right.
both individually and as a society.
Absolutely.
But what can like regular people do in their own lives to help ensure a more sustainable water future?
Well, there are actually a lot of things we can do. Simple things like fixing leaky faucets, taking shorter showers, being mindful of how much water we use in our gardens. All of that adds up.
Mm.
And we can also support businesses and organizations that are committed to sustainable water practices.
Oh, right. And we can push for stronger water policies, right?
Right.
Hold our leaders accountable for making decisions that protect this precious resource.
Absolutely. It's got to be a collective effort. The future of water is really a story about human choices. If we make smart decisions, ones based on science and sustainability and equity, well, I believe we can create a water-secure future for everyone.
Yeah. This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. It's made me look at water differently, not just as something I use every day, but as like a force of nature that shapes our planet and connects us all.
I'm really glad to hear that. It's been great exploring the world of water with you and with our listener.
It really has, and it's a journey that I think we'll all be continuing long after this deep dive's over. So thanks for joining us. And remember, every drop counts. But now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the actual water molecule itself. We've talked about oceans and glaciers and underground reservoirs, but what about water as a chemical compound? What makes this simple molecule so essential for life?
It's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in the big picture and forget about the fundamental building block of it all, right? The water molecule, H2O. What makes it so special? Well, it's a simple molecule, just two hydrogen atoms bonded to an oxygen atom. But that simplicity, it kind of hides just how incredibly versatile and important this molecule is for life. Water has this unique set of properties that make it essential for pretty much every single biological process.
Okay, so break down some of those amazing properties for me. Like I know water is often called the universal solvent because it can dissolve so many things. Why is that?
Well, that comes down to water's polar nature. The water molecule, it's got a slightly positive end and a slightly negative end. And this lets it attract and interact with a whole bunch of other molecules like salts, sugars, acids, things like that. Think of it like tiny magnets, attracting and pulling apart other molecules.
Well, water acts like a delivery system, moving nutrients and other important molecules throughout living things.
Exactly. And without water's ability to do that, to dissolve and transport these substances, life as we know it just wouldn't exist.
Wow. Another thing I've always found fascinating is that water is less dense as a solid than as a liquid. I mean, that's why ice floats. What makes that so important?
Most substances get denser as they freeze, but water's different.
Hmm.
When water freezes, its molecules arrange themselves into this crystalline structure that actually takes up more space. So that makes ice less dense than liquid water.
And if ice didn't float?
Oh, our lakes and oceans would freeze solid from the bottom up. It would be impossible for anything to live in them. But instead, what happens is that ice forms a protective layer on the surface. It insulates the water below and lets those aquatic ecosystems survive, even in really cold climates.
Wow. I've also heard that water has a high specific heat capacity. What does that even mean, and why does it matter?
So specific heat capacity is the amount of energy it takes to raise the temperature of something. And water has a very high GH specific heat capacity, meaning it takes a lot of energy to change its temperature.
So it's like water is acting as this giant heat sink,
Yeah.
absorbing and releasing energy slowly. That helps regulate temperatures on Earth, right?
Exactly. It helps moderate our climate and prevent extreme temperature swings, which makes for a much more stable, hospitable environment for life. Think about the difference between the temperatures in, say, a desert compared to a coastal region. Those big bodies of water really help moderate those extremes.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to how amazing water is. It's easy to take it for granted, but it really is an incredible substance essential for life as we know it.
I couldn't agree more. Studying water from its simple molecular structure to its role in shaping our planet and maybe even other worlds, it's just a never-ending source of fascination and wonder.
Well said. Now let's move on to our final segment, where we'll explore some of the challenges and opportunities facing the future of water on our planet. All right, so welcome back to the deep dive. We've gone from those familiar surface waters all the way down to the hidden depths of the Earth's mantle, exploring the wonders of water and just how important it is in shaping our world. And we've seen how it's all connected, from that tiny water molecule to those huge planetary processes. But now it's time to look ahead. What does the future hold for this precious resource?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And it's both kind of daunting and inspiring at the same time. I mean, the challenges facing water resources, they're definitely real. Climate change is messing with precipitation patterns, leading to more frequent and intense droughts and floods. And then you've got population growth and economic development, which are driving up demand, especially in areas that are already water scarce.
So we're facing a perfect storm of challenges, basically. It's a lot. Is there any reason to be optimistic about the future of water?
Oh, absolutely. I think what gives me hope is human ingenuity. I mean, throughout history, we've always found ways to adapt and innovate when it comes to water. Think about, ancient civilizations developing aqueducts and
Yeah.
irrigation systems, or modern cities with their sophisticated water treatment plants. We have the tools and we have the knowledge to navigate the challenges ahead, but it's going to require a pretty big shift in our thinking.
I'm glad you said that, because it does feel like we need to move beyond just thinking of water as a commodity and start recognizing how truly important it is, not just for humans, but for all life on Earth.
Yeah, I completely agree. We have to move away from a mindset of scarcity and embrace abundance. Not abundance in the sense that, there is unlimited water, but abundance in the sense that we recognize water as a gift, a resource to be cherished and protected.
So, okay, what does that actually look like? What are some of the solutions, the strategies that can help us make sure we have enough water in the future?
Well, it's not a one size fits all answer, is it? We need a multifaceted approach. We've talked about sustainable water management, conservation, efficiency, right? Those are fundamental. But we also need to keep investing in technological innovation. Like advancements in desalination technology are making it more energy efficient and cost effective. And that could be a real game changer, especially for coastal areas that are dealing with water scarcity.
And what about those deep earth water reserves? Could those be part of the solution too?
That's something scientists are really wrestling with right now. It's a fascinating possibility, but one that we need to approach with a lot of caution. Accessing those deep reserves would be a huge technological undertaking, and we need to really carefully assess the potential risks and impacts before we, go down that road.
It's like that saying, right? Look before you leap. We got to make sure we're not creating new problems while we're trying to solve the old ones.
Exactly. But it's not just about technology either. We need strong water management policies that encourage conservation, efficiency, and fair distribution of water resources. And that includes investing in infrastructure that can handle the impacts of climate change, things like drought-resistant crops and water-efficient irrigation systems. And we can't forget about cooperation and collaboration between countries that share water resources. After all, water doesn't recognize political boundaries, right?
It sounds like what we really need is a paradigm shift, like a move towards a more holistic, interconnected way of managing water.
Precisely. It's about understanding that water is a system, this web of connections that links all life on Earth. And it's about recognizing that our actions, they have ripple effects. If we pollute a river, it's not just that river that suffers. You know, the consequences can be felt downstream in ecosystems and communities far, far away.
So it's about taking responsibility both as individuals and as a global community. What are some things that people can do in their own lives to help create a more sustainable water future?
You know, there's so many things we can do. Simple things like fixing leaky faucets, taking shorter showers, being mindful of how much water we use in our gardens. Those things can actually make a real difference. And we can also support businesses and organizations that are doing their part to conserve water.
And we can speak up, right? We can
Mhm.
advocate for stronger water policies and hold our elected officials accountable for making decisions that protect this vital resource.
Absolutely. It has to be a collective effort. The future of water, it really comes down to human choices.
Hmm.
If we make wise choices, choices that are based on science, on sustainability, on equity, well, I really believe that we can create a water secure future for everyone.
This deep dive has really been eye-opening. It's made me think about water in a whole new way,
Mm.
not just as something I drink or use, but as a force that shapes our planet and connects us all.
You know, I'm so glad to hear that. It's been a real pleasure exploring the world of water with you and with our listener.
Yeah, it really has, and it's a journey that I think we'll all be continuing long after this deep dive is over. So thanks for joining us,
Me?
and remember, every drop counts.